let's unpack this. There's a generation navigating our world right now, often labeled, the most anxious in history. We're talking about Gen Z, those born roughly between 1997 and 2012.
Right.
You hear the labels thrown around: overly sensitive, fragile, even soft. But is that truly the full picture?
Probably not, no.
Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into some truly fascinating material that paints a far more nuanced and frankly more empathetic understanding of this cohort.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on beneath the surface.
This isn't about some inherent personal weakness or like a simple character flaw. It's about a generation that has grown up immersed in an environment unlike any previous ones have ever encountered.
Completely different circumstances.
Think about it. A world shaped by unprecedented digital connectivity, relentless economic pressures, and a constant barrage of global crises.
Is a unique convergence of factors.
Our mission today is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from a range of psychological data, sociological studies, and insightful analyses. We want to understand why Gen Z is reporting such unprecedented levels of stress and anxiety, to move beyond those easy stereotypes.
Exactly. Get to the root causes.
We'll explore the complex, uncertain, and hyper-stimulating environment that has defined their formative years, and crucially, what this all means for all of us, whether you're a member of Gen Z yourself, a parent, an educator, an employer, or just someone trying to make deeper sense of the modern world.
Because it really does affect everyone.
This isn't just a story about them. It's a reflection of our collective era.
Absolutely. So to truly grasp the scope of this challenge, it's vital to first clarify what exactly we mean when we talk about anxiety.
Good point. It gets thrown around a lot.
It does. And it's so much more than just, a fleeting worry before a big presentation or a moment of nervousness about an upcoming deadline.
Right. Normal stress versus something more persistent.
Precisely. Clinically, anxiety is a mental health condition characterized by excessive, persistent worry, nervousness, or fear that is intense enough to significantly impact daily life.
So it actually interferes with things?
Yes. It can interfere with relationships, make it difficult to concentrate at work or school, or even lead to physical symptoms like restlessness, fatigue, muscle tension, sleep disturbances.
Wow, okay.
It's a pervasive state that significantly diminishes one's quality of life.
And the research shows this is particularly high for Gen Z.
Unmistakably. What the research unequivocally reveals is the sheer scale and intensity of anxiety reported by Gen Z. This isn't merely anecdotal observation from social media trends. The data is stark.
It's quantifiable.
Very much so, pointing to a profound shift in mental health across an entire demographic. According to the American Psychological Association, the APA, Gen Z consistently reports higher stress levels than any other living generation.
Higher than millennials, Gen X, boomers.
Higher than all of them. Just consider that for a moment. The reported stress surpasses that of baby boomers, Gen X, or millennials. This isn't a minor uptick. It represents a significant generational difference.
That's incredible.
And the numbers continue to paint a concerning picture. Rates of generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, and clinical depression have absolutely skyrocketed among Gen Z youth.
Skyrocketed. That's a strong word.
It fits the data. Further compounding this, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, has documented a steep and alarming rise in self-harm, suicidal ideation, and mental health crises among Gen Z teenagers.
Oh, wow. That's serious.
It is. And this isn't simply an increase in awareness or reporting, though that plays a part. It signifies a serious public health challenge that demands our collective attention.
So the big question then.
Yeah, a crucial question that arises from this data is why? Why are these rates so uniquely different and so significantly elevated for this specific cohort?
Right. What's driving it?
It strongly suggests that we're dealing with powerful systemic influences, broad societal currents that are fundamentally shaping this generation's mental landscape rather than individual predisposition or, a character flaw.
So it's the context, the environment.
The data compels us to look beyond personal shortcomings and deeply examine the environment in which they are developing.
That's a vital distinction, really. Reframing the conversation from blaming individuals to understanding the powerful forces at play.
Exactly.
So if we're looking at systemic influences, let's truly deep dive into the core reasons behind Gen Z's heightened anxiety. Starting with something that, it literally permeates every waking moment of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
Digital overload and the relentless pressure of social media.
A huge one. Absolutely central.
A compelling aspect of this is how our sources highlight 24/7 connectivity as a foundational and pervasive factor.
Yeah.
Imagine growing up from childhood with a powerful, always-on device in your
It's
hands.
second nature to them.
Right. This isn't just about having access. It's about a constant stream of notifications, the unconscious urge to check, the feeling of always needing to be on or instantly available. It's an unceasing mental hum
A background noise that never quite stops.
that previous generations simply never contended with from such an early age.
Mm-hmm.
And woven intrinsically into that 24/7 connectivity is social media. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, they aren't merely places for sharing photos or funny videos.
No, they're much more complex than that.
They are, as our sources articulate, expertly engineered to encourage a filtered reality.
Yeah, that curated perfection.
Picture a global stage where everyone is constantly performing their absolute best moments, showcasing their most curated lives, often using filters and editing to present an ideal, often unattainable appearance. It's an endless, meticulously crafted highlight reel.
Always the best version, never the messy reality.
So for a developing mind, what does this do to a burgeoning sense of self-worth and body image? Think about it, listener. Perhaps you've experienced this personally or seen it unfold with younger family members.
That constant exposure.
It fosters a persistent, inescapable social comparison.
That's precisely it. This digital landscape creates what's commonly referred to as a social comparison trap, but on an unprecedented global scale.
Global scale. Yeah.
You're no longer just comparing yourself to your immediate peer group or even the celebrities you see on TV. You're comparing your unfiltered, everyday reality to a seemingly endless stream of perfectly curated, often unrealistic, global ideals presented by millions.
That sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting, and it dramatically amplifies feelings of inadequacy. This dynamic then directly feeds into the infamous fear of missing out, or FOMO.
A FOMO. We hear that term a lot.
We do. But it isn't just about missing a fun party or a social event. It extends to missing out on perceived achievements, desirable lifestyles, or even intense emotional experiences that others appear to be having and sharing online.
So it's deeper than just social plans.
Much deeper. This constant loop results in chronic dissatisfaction, a persistent feeling that your life isn't quite measuring up, an overwhelming sense of overstimulation from the sheer volume of content and constant interaction.
Just too much, all the time.
Exactly. And beyond these sort of subtle psychological pressures, we absolutely cannot overlook the very real and deeply damaging phenomenon of cyberbullying.
Right. That's a dark side.
A very dark side. Unlike traditional bullying, which might have been confined to the schoolyard or a specific social group, cyberbullying follows individuals home.
No escape.
Virtually no escape. It operates globally, 247 across multiple platforms. It can be anonymous, which makes it even more insidious and difficult to combat, leaving victims feeling helpless, relentlessly targeted, and profoundly isolated.
That sounds terrifying for a young person.
It is. And from a psychological standpoint, the truly intriguing aspect here is how social media expertly amplifies the brain's natural dopamine reward loop.
The like button effect.
Precisely. Each like, every comment, every new follower delivers a small hit of dopamine, a neurochemical associated with pleasure and motivation. This creates addiction-like patterns, compelling users to constantly return, seeking that next hit of validation.
Like a digital slot machine.
Very much like that. Simultaneously, this constant state of being on, coupled with the stress of social comparison and the ever-present threat of cyberbullying, significantly increases cortisol, our primary stress hormone.
So you get the pleasure hit and the stress hit.
It's a perfect storm for anxiety, constantly pushing the brain into a state of heightened alert, compulsively seeking external validation, and simultaneously flooding the system with stress chemicals.
Wow.
When we connect this to the bigger picture, it signifies a fundamental rewiring of our daily interactions, our expectations of connection, and even how our brains process social cues and rewards.
It's literally changing their brains.
This pervasive digital engagement isn't just a habit. It's profoundly shaping neural pathways, emotional regulation, and our very perception of self-worth.
That truly paints a vivid and concerning picture of the digital environment. Okay, so beyond that ever-present digital world, our sources consistently point to very real-world economic and academic anxieties that weigh heavily on Gen Z.
Another huge layer of pressure.
This generation is growing up with the profound specter of crippling student debt. The cost of higher education has soared,
Unbelievably so.
making it nearly impossible for many to avoid significant loans if they pursue a degree. Coupled with that, they face increasingly unaffordable housing markets in many places.
The dream of homeownership feels very distant for many.
Right, or at least significantly delayed compared to previous generations.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the job market itself, which is often described as increasingly unstable and competitive.
The gig economy, precarious work.
Exactly. Many jobs are being automated or outsourced or transitioning to that gig-based model that lacks security and benefits.
Not the stable career paths maybe their parents had.
So imagine pouring years of effort into your education, incurring substantial debt, only to face profound uncertainty about whether you'll even secure stable, well-paying employment.
It's an incredibly challenging and anxiety-inducing equation for young people trying to establish their adult lives.
Definitely.
And the pressure isn't solely economic. The pressure to succeed academically is also unprecedented, often beginning at a very young age.
The college application race.
Oh, yes. There's an intense, almost overwhelming drive to gain admission into top universities, to build a perfect resume, brimming with extracurriculars, volunteer work, internships.
It's not just about grades anymore.
Not at all. It's a hyper-competitive, high-stakes race that escalates significantly through adolescence. Our sources highlight that this relentless pursuit of perfection has made burnout disturbingly common, even in teenagers.
Burnout in teenagers, that's alarming.
It is genuinely alarming. We're observing young people experiencing the kind of chronic exhaustion, cynicism, and disillusionment typically associated with demanding adult careers, long before they even properly enter the workforce.
Wow. So psychologically, what does that chronic uncertainty do?
Well, this chronic uncertainty and relentless pressure trigger what's known as anticipatory anxiety.
Anticipatory anxiety.
Yes. This isn't just normal, fleeting worry about a specific event like a test. It's a pervasive, underlying sense of dread about the future itself, about things that haven't even happened yet but feel inevitable or unmanageable.
Like constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly. And what's crucial here is that this constant state of anticipatory anxiety actually impairs vital cognitive functions, specifically emotional regulation and executive functioning.
The skills you need to cope.
The very skills needed to navigate a complex and uncertain world, like planning, problem-solving, decision-making, setting priorities, managing your own emotional responses.
So the stress makes it harder to deal with the stress.
Precisely. The constant stress and uncertainty inadvertently make it harder for their developing brains to effectively cope with that stress itself, creating a truly vicious cycle. Their capacity to adapt and manage is being undermined by the very conditions they're trying to navigate.
And as if the digital landscape and these economic and academic pressures weren't enough.
There's more.
Our sources highlight that Gen Z is hyper-aware of global issues on a scale no previous generation has truly experienced.
The information flow is just constant.
They're constantly bombarded with catastrophic news cycles, climate change, pandemics, global conflicts, gun violence, political instability, often delivered directly to their phones, raw and unfiltered.
Without the context or gatekeeping that older generations might have had.
Right. This isn't just passive observation. It creates a profound and pervasive sense of existential dread. How do you, the listener, feel when you're constantly confronted with news that seems insurmountable? Problems of such vast scale.
It fosters a sense of powerlessness.
An incredibly heavy burden for young minds to carry, fostering a deep-seated anxiety about the very future of the planet and society itself.
And this constant bombardment naturally leads to a phenomenon that has become incredibly prevalent: doom scrolling.
Ah, yes, doom scrolling. Keep refreshing, even though it makes you feel worse.
Exactly. The compulsive tendency to consume excessive amounts of negative, often alarming news online, almost as if one can't look away.
Like a moth to a flame.
You might feel like staying informed, but prolonged and unchecked exposure isn't benign. It's psychologically detrimental.
How so? What does it do to the brain?
Well, the intriguing aspect here is how constant exposure to negative news increases activity in the amygdala, our brain's alarm center.
The fear center.
Yes, responsible for processing fear and threat. When it's constantly activated as it is during prolonged doom scrolling, it keeps individuals in a perpetual state of fight-or-flight readiness.
Even when there's no immediate physical danger.
Correct. And crucially, this heightened chronic activity impairs optimism and healthy coping mechanisms. It makes it harder to see solutions, to feel hopeful, or to engage in proactive problem solving.
So it literally makes you feel less capable of finding hope.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, yes.
Yeah.
The very world around them, through its relentless news cycle, is literally conditioning their brains to perceive constant threat, making it incredibly difficult to cultivate a sense of agency or future-oriented optimism.
They're constantly preparing for disaster.
Which leaves little room for hope or proactive engagement.
And then on top of all of that baseline anxiety came the unprecedented curveball, the COVID-19
A
pandemic.
massive disruptor.
Our sources point out that the pandemic hit during absolutely crucial developmental years for many Gen Z teens and college students. This wasn't just an inconvenience.
Not at all.
It was a profound, life-altering event that fundamentally reshaped their formative experiences. They tragically lost traditional rites of passage,
Graduations, proms, first jobs.
things that are so vital for social and emotional development. Graduations, socializing, first jobs, internships, even just going to college for the first time.
These aren't minor events. They're deeply formative.
They help young people define themselves, build critical social skills, transition into adulthood. The absence of these milestones created a significant void.
Absolutely. And the pandemic also led to unprecedented levels of isolation, as lockdowns and social distancing became the norm for extended periods.
So much time alone, or just with immediate family.
Right. This, coupled with heightened anxiety over health their loved ones created an atmosphere of pervasive fear and uncertainty beyond the usual adolescent worries.
And education took a hit too.
Oh, definitely. Significant disruption to their education, with a sudden, often ill-equipped shift to online learning, varying levels of quality, and a general lack of structure.
That must have been incredibly hard to adapt to.
Very difficult. And from a developmental psychology perspective, what's profoundly impactful here is that robust social interaction is absolutely essential for healthy emotional development.
How we learn to do relationships.
Exactly. It's how young people learn crucial skills: regulating emotions in real time, navigating complex social relationships, reading nonverbal cues, resolving conflicts, building empathy and resilience through direct experience.
Things you learn by doing, not just reading about.
Precisely. The lack of these critical in-person interactions during such a vital developmental period has, for many, delayed the formation of crucial coping skills. They simply didn't get the continuous practice in real-world social navigation.
So they missed key learning opportunities.
Yes. And this raises a crucial question. What are the long-term ripple effects of this developmental disruption, especially as they move into more complex social and professional environments?
It's a challenge that will likely continue to unfold
for years to come, influencing their ability to form deep connections and manage life's inevitable setbacks.
That makes profound sense, like missing foundational building blocks. Okay, another significant factor our sources delve into, which is complex and fascinating, is identity and existential confusion.
A big one for this generation.
In many ways, Gen Z is far more likely to question and explore gender identity, sexual orientation, racial identity, personal values.
More than any previous generation, really.
This openness to defining one's identity in a more fluid, inclusive, self-determined way is often celebrated as progress.
And it is, in many ways, a positive shift.
However, this profound exploration also comes with significant identity stress. Imagine the added pressure of navigating who you are, your deepest sense of self, in a highly polarized world.
Where every aspect of identity can be intensely debated online.
Exactly. It's a constant public negotiation of self in a very unforgiving arena, where missteps can lead to viral shame or ostracization.
That pressure is immense.
Yeah.
And compounding that, Gen Z is exposed to a dizzying array of conflicting ideologies online, constantly. Every comment section, every social media feed.
Just a fire hose of different, often angry viewpoints.
Wildly different viewpoints, from the mundane to the extreme, often presented without nuance or context. This constant bombardment causes what's known as cognitive dissonance.
Holding conflicting ideas at the same time?
Yes, the mental discomfort of holding conflicting beliefs or values simultaneously. For example, valuing open-mindedness, but seeing your online community demand rigid adherence to one viewpoint. That clash creates significant internal stress.
I can see that.
This, in turn, leads to what our sources term social fatigue.
Just worn out by it all.
Exactly. It's exhausting to constantly process and reconcile these wildly different viewpoints, to discern truth from misinformation, and navigate the intense pressure to align with one side or another, often in real time online.
While trying to figure out who you are.
All while simultaneously trying to figure out your own sense of self. It's an immense cognitive and emotional load.
So psychologically, how does this tie into anxiety?
Well, what's particularly insightful here is that identity formation is a core developmental task of adolescence and early adulthood. It's a critical period for consolidating a coherent sense of self.
Figuring out your place in the world.
Yes. When this process is disrupted or becomes overly complicated by external pressures, conflicting information, or a polarized social environment, it can lead to what's known as identity diffusion.
Identity diffusion.
A state where an individual hasn't fully committed to a strong, stable identity and continues to struggle significantly to define themselves. The result is profound uncertainty, lack of clear direction, and consequently increased anxiety.
So not having that firm sense of self makes you more anxious.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about the very foundation of self-understanding being built on shifting sands, making it harder to establish purpose, belonging, or inner peace, thus increasing vulnerability to chronic anxiety.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to a point that our sources highlight as a bit of a double-edged sword regarding Gen Z and mental health.
Yes, the stigma reduction aspect.
On one hand, a hugely positive aspect is that Gen Z talks far more openly about mental health than any generation before them. They're more willing to acknowledge struggles, seek help, advocate for mental wellness.
Which is a massive step forward, truly.
It bravely breaks down historical stigmas, making conversations about therapy or anxiety more normal.
Absolutely fundamental progress.
But here's where it gets particularly nuanced and frankly a bit concerning, according to the sources. This increased self-awareness, this greater vocabulary around mental health, without adequate access to real therapeutic tools or robust professional support systems, can actually become a problem.
Right. Awareness without resources.
It may lead to pervasive self-diagnosis, labeling themselves with clinical conditions based on online research or social media trends, and even mislabeling normal emotional responses as pathological.
That's the tricky part. What's acutely relevant here is that while heightened awareness and reduced stigma are monumental positives, there's also a subtle but significant risk of pathologizing perfectly normal human emotional responses.
Seeing illness where there's just life.
Sort of. For example, feeling genuinely sad after a breakup is a natural, healthy response to loss. Feeling anxious before a big exam is a normal physiological reaction to stress.
Things everyone experiences.
Exactly. However, in an environment where mental health language is omnipresent, often without professional guidance, these perfectly normal adaptive feelings can sometimes be misconstrued as signs of a deeper clinical disorder,
leading to more worry.
It can contribute to significant internal confusion, making it harder for individuals to distinguish between a healthy emotional response, a transient mood, and a clinical condition that genuinely requires intervention. It can lead to unnecessary worry about being broken.
When maybe they're just human.
Precisely. This raises a crucial question about how we educate about mental health without inadvertently over-medicalizing normal human experience.
It's a fine line.
The goal must be to destigmatize genuine conditions and encourage help-seeking, but also to equip individuals with the understanding that not every uncomfortable emotion is pathology, and that distress and sadness are inherent parts of life. It's about balance and discernment.
It's certainly a delicate balance. And speaking of environments, our sources don't just focus on the broader societal challenges, they also look closely at the immediate social environment, including parenting styles.
Oh, yes, the micro-level influences are critical.
How do those contribute?
That's a critical addition. Beyond broad societal currents, these microenvironments play a profoundly important role. Our sources frequently point to helicopter or overprotective parenting.
Trying to shield kids from everything.
Exactly. While well-intentioned, driven by a desire to protect, they can inadvertently prevent crucial resilience-building experiences that come from navigating challenges independently.
Learning to handle failure or difficulty?
Yes. If a child is consistently protected from setbacks, disappointment, or difficult situations, they don't develop the internal resources, problem-solving skills, and emotional stamina to cope later. They don't learn how to fail forward.
Makes sense.
Compounding this is the immense pressure to achieve that often originates from families. This adds significant layers of performance anxiety. Children often feel they constantly need to meet impossibly high expectations.
Academic, athletic, social.
All of it, which directly reinforces the academic and economic pressures already present, creating a relentless feedback loop of stress.
Internalizing those external pressures.
Furthermore, in some immediate environments, a lack of consistent emotional validation or genuine intergenerational understanding can profoundly intensify feelings of isolation.
Feeling dismissed or misunderstood by adults.
Right. If young people feel their struggles are dismissed, told to just get over it, or you have it so easy, it makes it infinitely harder for them to feel seen and supported. They might internalize that their feelings are invalid.
Which just fuels the anxiety.
Exactly. It further exacerbates anxiety and discourages authentic communication. When we connect this to the bigger picture, it vividly illustrates how these microenvironments amplify macro-societal pressures.
Creating a compounding effect.
Yes, transforming external stressors into deeply internalized anxieties that affect their core sense of self and capacity to cope. It's a complex, multi-layered web of influences.
So given this comprehensive understanding of the immense pressures Gen Z faces, what can actually be done? It's profoundly clear this isn't just an individual problem.
No, it requires systemic change.
Our sources offer pathways forward on both societal and individual levels. Let's start with the societal ones.
Indeed, on a societal level, it's evident this isn't something fixed with individual resilience alone. It demands foundational structural shifts. Our sources consistently emphasize the urgent need for improving access to affordable, high-quality mental health services.
Making it as easy to get help for anxiety as for a broken arm.
That's the goal. Mental health care needs to be accessible, destigmatized, and integrated. This means addressing barriers like cost, insurance coverage, and the shortage of practitioners.
That's foundational. What else?
Secondly, reforming education systems to actively reduce burnout and place far greater emphasis on emotional intelligence is critical.
Moving beyond just grades and test scores.
Yes. Shifting focus. Integrating comprehensive social-emotional learning into curricula early on, teaching coping mechanisms, stress management, conflict resolution, empathy. Cultivating well-rounded, resilient individuals.
Skills for life, not just for exams.
Exactly. Finally, regulating social media algorithms and actively educating users about healthy digital habits is crucial.
Tackling the digital overload directly.
Yes. Platform accountability for harmful content, features encouraging digital breaks, mindful usage. And education is key, empowering users, especially young people, to understand the impacts and cultivate intentional use.
Moving from passive consumption to mindful engagement.
Right. A crucial question arising from these solutions is, how do we shift from just observing the problem to collectively implementing solutions, addressing root causes?
Which are deeply embedded in our structures.
It requires collective effort, political will, and a willingness to critically examine and reshape the very systems we've built.
That's a powerful call to action for society. But on a more immediate, personal level, what does all this mean for you, the listener, or for Gen Z individuals and their allies navigating this now?
There are practical steps.
Our sources offer actionable steps that can make a real difference individually, fostering resilience and well-being.
Therapy is a big one.
Yes. First, therapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and mindfulness-based interventions, are highlighted as incredibly effective.
Evidence-based approaches.
CBT helps identify and challenge negative thought patterns, providing concrete tools for managing anxiety. Mindfulness teaches staying grounded in the present.
Practical skills, not just concepts.
Tangible skills for navigating distress and building emotional resilience.
What else?
Second, digital detoxes are becoming essential. Intentional disconnections, setting boundaries on screen time, device-free zones, even full days offline.
Reclaiming control over attention.
Exactly. Reframing focus, rebuilding self-worth internally, moving beyond constant online validation, remembering the world beyond the screen.
Finding that offline balance.
Third, community building is vital. Finding safe spaces offline, real-world connections, fostering belonging, genuine support, reducing isolation.
Real human connection.
Could be clubs, sports, volunteering, or just quality time with friends and family in person. These authentic connections are crucial for well-being.
Feeling seen and valued beyond a digital profile.
And finally, self-compassion. Actively challenging that pervasive perfectionism and developing emotional agility.
Being kind to yourself.
Treating yourself with the kindness you'd offer a friend, especially when struggling. Acknowledging it's okay not to be perfect. Emotional agility builds on that, noticing emotions without judgment, then choosing how to respond in line with your values.
Not letting emotions control you.
These aren't just buzzwords. They're practical steps to build genuine resilience in a challenging world, enabling Gen Z and all of us to thrive.
Really important tools.
So what does this all mean as we bring this deep dive to a close? Our exploration today makes it abundantly clear. Gen Z isn't inherently more fragile or soft.
Not at all.
What they are, definitively, is the first generation to grow up fully immersed in this uniquely digitally connected, existentially anxious, rapidly changing world.
Their heightened anxiety isn't a personal failing.
It is, in essence, a mirror reflecting the deep systemic, technological, and cultural challenges of our current era.
Precisely. Recognizing this doesn't mean coddling or dismissing their struggles. Quite the opposite.
What does it mean?
It means responding with profound empathy, pursuing necessary structural reforms, and crucially, equipping them, and frankly, equipping all of us, with robust tools that strengthen resilience for an uncertain future.
Understanding their struggles as symptoms of larger conditions.
Conditions that, in various ways, impact every single one of us.
So, if Gen Z's anxiety truly is that mirror reflecting our era's challenges, what does this tell us about the collective future we are actively building? And what shared responsibility do we all hold in reshaping that future for this generation and future ones, going far beyond just fixing Gen Z?
A vital question.
It raises a crucial thought. Perhaps understanding their struggles and the systemic roots of those struggles is the very first, most essential step in understanding and ultimately forging our own collective path forward.